Maverick. Noun, unusual person. A visionary, leader, go-getter, an independent thinker. They see the vision for their life and pull that future towards them with an unyielding belief that things can and must be better. They achieve what most won't. Innovative, influential, daring, and direct, with a remarkably high tolerance for taking calculated risk. A foe to the status quo. This is Passive Real Estate Investing with Mavericks. Your host, Neil Timmins, has been involved with over $300 million in real estate transactions. He's a published author, commercial property investor, and real estate syndicator. This show is for those who want to learn how to earn passive income through real estate investing. Now, here's your host, Neil Timmins.
Welcome to Passive Real Estate Investing with Mavericks, where we provide actionable steps to grow your passive income and become job optional. During this episode, you're going to get to discover how proper management turns into a big payday. For those of you who are new, I welcome you. I'm your host, Neil Timmins, and I love passive income from real estate. Before I introduce you to today's Maverick, I want to make a request that at any point, if you like what you're hearing, give us a thumbs up or subscribe to a show to never miss an episode. And if you love what you're hearing, well, give us a written review. Plus, be sure to check out the description of this episode as we packed it with thousands of dollars in free resources. Well, today, we've got the privilege to learn from a person who is a multifamily syndicator, been in the business over a decade. Prior to real estate, he was cutting his teeth working in technology up and down the coast of the Eastern Seaboard. But all that changed one day when he bought his first fourplex, and that was his entry point into real estate. I would describe today's Maverick as somebody who's passionate about creating passive income for investors. So I want to introduce you to today's Maverick, Ed Mathews. Ed, how are you?
Hey, Neil, nice to see you.
It's good to see you. Thanks so much for making the time to connect up on here. I'm excited for our conversation.
Truly a pleasure. It's always good to see you, and I appreciate your time.
You bet. Tell me, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
So Ed Mathews, I run Clark Street Capital. We're based here in Connecticut, and we are a multifamily investor, syndicator, developer.
How long have you been doing that?
About 12 years.
All right, quite a while. Take me back to the beginning. Tell me about the very first multifamily deal you bought.
It was actually the first building I ever bought. It was on Clark Street.
All right.
Hartford. And so 2008, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it changed my life, right? Yeah. But it took 3 years to actually change my life because I was terrified to pull the trigger on a deal. And I met this realtor. Her name is Amy Rio. She was a teeny tiny realtor at the point where I met her, and now she's one of, if not the biggest realtor broker in the state of Connecticut. She's gigantic. So Amy, I don't know if she felt sorry for me or took a liking to me, one or the other. And so she brought me around and showed me no less than 30 properties. Now, this was 2010, 2011, right? Okay. And so it was a target-rich environment. You could swing a wet towel and hit a real estate deal at that point, right? But I always found something that, would cause me to not pull the trigger. Oh, it's a white house, not a blue one. Oh, it's, I see a couple of shingles are shot on the roof. No. And so it had to be 25 or 30 properties that she showed me over a few months. And we pull into, she goes, I got one more for you. And this one you're going to buy. I know it. I was like, okay. So, we drive to the property. It's 11 Clark Street, and it's an abandoned 4-family. The previous owner had lost it to the bank, and the tenants had all moved out. And we walked it, and the HVAC was nearly brand new. All the plumbing was new. The electrical had just been redone, so there was no knob and tube. Like, it removed all of the excuses that I would normally pull out of my golf bag to wave off of. Yeah. And it was a good, honest property, right? Yeah. And it needed $10,000-$12,000 worth of paint and flooring and clean up and all that. But other than that, it was ready to go. And so we walk out, and Amy, I noticed, has a pen in her right hand and a piece of paper in her left. She walks over to the hood of her car. Now I'm about 6'4". Amy is 5'2", right? And so I'm like more than a foot taller than this person. And she looks at me right in the eye and says, and she clicks her pen and says, sign this contract. This is the best deal you're ever going to find. And if you don't sign it, never effing call me again. And I'm like, okay. She terrified me to the point where I took the pen. I was more afraid of Amy at that moment than I was of signing the contract. And my hand shook, but I signed that contract, and I own that property today. And so, we bought it for $99,000, which around here is a smoking hot deal.
Yep.
And, right now it's probably worth mid threes. So,
wow.
Just thank you, Amy, wherever you are. Because that was, the first of dozens of properties. And so back then I was a technology executive, traveling, selling software and implementing and all that for companies on the West Coast. And so, my investment process was more along the lines of, well, okay, we have one, we've got it fixed. It's now starting to cash flow. Fantastic. Let's do it again. Oh, I don't have any money. Right. So what we would do is I would get a partner, and we would flip a house, and then flip another house, and then flip another house, take that capital, return money to the investor or my partner. Yep. And I take my share and buy another multi, and we, rinse and repeat. And pretty soon I didn't need partners. I was just doing it on my own. And so we did that for about 7 years or so.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I met a property manager who I became friends with, and, Cecilia Faraci, and she came to me, she goes, "You're not doing this right." I'm like, "Okay, tell me." She said, "Do you want cash or do you want wealth?" And I said, "Well, the cash is nice, but I already have a job. So I'm looking to build wealth here." And she said, then why aren't you in multifamily? Because, and here's how that works. And, we spent better part of an hour, her breaking it down for me. Yep. And, exact same motion, basically the same amount of money. So I went from duplexes, triplexes, and fours to 6s, 8s, 10s, 12s, and so on. And back in, so that was 2018. And the good news is that our small multifamily portfolio had basically eclipsed my salary. So I didn't need the job anymore. So yep. I went full time, and, we've been in the multifamily business exclusively since.
Incredible. Tell me about the most recent deal that you bought.
So I'm a big fan. So I'm a baseball, softball guy, right? My daughter plays softball. And so I think in terms of singles, doubles, triples, and home runs. And so I'm great with hitting singles and doubles. And so we just picked up a property here in a town called Willimantic. It's a 7-family. Great deal. Bought it for $385. We're going to put, quite a bit of money into it. And so, our business is really focused on buying crappy apartment buildings from landlords who aren't very good at their jobs.
Yeah.
Right? And so, the first pass is always, okay, let's make it clean and safe, right? Let's get rid of the lead. Let's get rid of the knob and tube, make sure the HVAC is safe, all that stuff. And then we upgrade, the common areas and the exterior, and fix the roof. And as units come open, we go in, new kitchens, new bathrooms, new floors, new everything, basically, so that, the folks that move in, yes, they're going to be charged a little more in rent, but the fact is the secret to this, and the reason why I think we're doing well, is residents who live in a place where they're proud. They are communicative and responsive. They take very good care of your building, and they pay their rent on time, and they stay for a really long time, right? And vacancy in my world, in the multifamily world, is really expensive.
Very.
It's in your world, in the industrial world as well. And so, our job here, I think the average tenancy in the state of Connecticut is like 16 months. Ours right now is just about 3.5 years. And, the goal is, I'd love to make that 10 years, but, it's a process. But, the fact is that, what we want to do is make sure that the folks that live there, we provide, I don't care if you're in an A-class building, B or C-class building, you're going to get top-notch service. And that's please and thank you. Appreciate your time. It's my pleasure to serve you. How can we help? And so we've built a team around serving our residents. And, so what that allows us to do is when we come into a property, one of the first things we're doing, in terms of the human beings, right, is we're working to repair the relationship. And because by and large, the previous owner didn't pay quite as much attention. And so, that's a big part of this as well. And
so you manage what I hear you saying is you manage everything then in order to execute on that. Yeah,
we do. Yeah. So we took property management in about 2 years ago. And because we were trying to get our property manager to do it our way and he wouldn't. So eventually we said, okay, it's time to build a team and bring it in-house.
It's incredible. I don't hear anybody talking about what you're talking about in this space.
Really?
No, not to the extent in which you have conveyed this. And I agree with your assessment. Everybody knows it, but they just don't do anything about it. Is the property turns, vacancy kills you. It's the churn will kill you too, because it costs too much money to churn a unit.
Right.
It's huge, right? I mean, it's a money suck. So if you can extend that, you're at 2x the average tenancy inside of an apartment is incredible.
Thank you.
The ability to do that, because probably the same thing your experience is. Property managers are stuck. We've done it this way. This is the way we do it. This is our process.
Right.
And if you give a tenant an inch, they're going to take a mile.
Exactly. I vividly remember the property manager saying, this is a dominance play. They need to know I'm in charge. I'm like, no, they don't. Right. Just be a human being. Just treat them with respect, and they'll, eventually they'll treat you with respect. But that's a two-way road, right?
It's a relationship factor. It absolutely is a two-way street. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. Tell me this, what, in between your first deal and the one you just described, your most recent deal, I mean, there's a lot of learnings along the way. What are some of the biggest lessons that you learned along that journey?
Wow. So I think the first one is know your numbers. It's remarkable how many operators I meet, smaller players, right? I tend to mentor a lot of folks around me. It's one of the ways that I give back for the Amy Rios of the world who helped me, right? And it's amazing how when they buy a property, one of the first things I ask is, well, what's your break even? How many units do you have to rent in order to break even? And the answer almost always is, I don't know. Okay, well, let's figure that out, right? Because the fact is that, you're staring down the barrel right now as we sit here recording this in early April, of a potential recession. And it, depending on who you're listening to, it could be a soft landing or it could be the end of the world. Who knows? It's probably somewhere in the middle. And, the fact is that cash flow, the reason that real estate, multifamily in my world is recession resistant is because of cash flow, right? Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, shelter is a big deal in their world, in people's worlds, right?
Correct.
And so if you can provide a clean and safe place where they're proud to live and they're getting a fair deal, they're not going to move, and thus they're going to pay their rent. And that cash flow is going to allow you to weather the storm. So knowing your numbers, knowing how, on a even a daily basis, what your cash position is. I have a bookkeeper right now, and every day she sends me our cash position, because we have, there's so many moving parts in this business, right? We've got the acquisitions piece, we've got the due diligence piece, we've got acquisition, meaning outreach to brokers and building owners and all that, property management, and and everything in between, with regard to construction and rehabs and all that. That, we need to know on a daily basis exactly how much cash we have coming in and how much we have in the bank, so that I can make sure that when Friday rolls around, we get to pay our guys. Right. It's interesting how many people wing that. They don't think that through. And so that is a number one on the list is know your numbers. I think the second thing I've learned is that through acquisitions, I am a huge proponent. We were just talking about this offline, but I'm a huge proponent of really good deals are created, not necessarily found. And so, we are on a very consistent basis. So on a, weekly and monthly basis, we are touching the 1,208 building owners that we've identified as potential property targets in our buy box. And so, our job as marketers is that we are trying to suck the oxygen out of that marketplace so that when that person decides, okay, it's time to get rid of this, 20 unit, that we're an obvious phone call, to make their lives easier. And we've worked real hard to build a reputation that we close deals. And so when that phone call comes, and they come occasionally, our team is ready to go and knows exactly what to do in terms of working our checklists through due diligence and pricing it and all that. And then the other part of it, and actually we were talking about this as well, something that we used to do and we stopped doing, and now we're starting to do it again, is working with really good brokers. Yeah. And so, building our relationships with those brokers is something that I saw this gentleman, Bo Berry, speak at Jake and Gino's MM5 conference a few months back. And in the 35 minutes he was talking, he changed my mind on brokers. And that was that, the fact is that brokers, this is all they do, is build relationships with building owners. And they are the most efficient way to get to a building owner because they've been friends with them for, the past 10 years.
Right.
And so when they're ready, when a building owner's ready to sell, probably one of the phone calls is going to be to their buddy, the broker.
Fair to say, past a certain threshold of price or size, the brokers dominate the game.
Without a doubt. Anything, and in our market, I would say that that's $1 million plus.
Yeah.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
You mentioned something, buy box. You've got 1,208. Was that the number?
It is. That is the number.
1,208, which I love, that you know exactly how many there are and what that is. Is it, looking back to the first deal to the most recent deal, is it fair to say the buy box has changed, or maybe the buy box was established in between those two transactions?
So I'm a marketing guy, right? And I think in terms of concentric circles when you look at a market. And so and there's a finite amount of resources. I am not infinitely wealthy, right? So that means that every dollar I spend, I have to make sure that it's as efficient as possible.
Correct.
And so what we do is it used to be like I was that guy who never wanted to miss a deal. I don't care if it's a single family, a duplex, a 20 unit, I want them all. And that was a mistake because it spread me so thin. I wasn't effective at any of them. Yeah. And so, what we did was I applied what I learned in technology world to real estate world, and, really focused down on specific towns or cities. And then as we grew and our resources grew, we focused on counties. And now I'm focused on, better part of half of the state of Connecticut. And within those, we got very clear, crystal clear on exactly what we were looking for. I'm looking for 10 to 50 units. Will I buy a 7 unit? You bet, if it's a good deal. But, by and large, our marketing, all the things we're focused on is, hey, if you can find, and specifically our wheelhouse is 10 to 25 units, which is what is usually around here. I want to know on a first name basis every single building owner that owns those properties, and I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there.
Yeah.
And if I can't meet the owner, I definitely want to meet his or her broker buddy.
What one attribute or habit do you credit most to the success that you've had?
That's a great question. I would say a bias towards action, right? So, one of the things that I coach and mentor, a handful of people, and the thing that separates the folks that are in this business and operating from the folks that say, I wish I had time to do this, is action. Is because my answer to that question is, well, what are you waiting for? Right? What's stopping you?
Yep.
And so I think that is something. And, action can be a lot of different things. First and foremost, you have to decide who you are in this business, right? Are you an active investor where you have the time and the effort and the expertise to manage a property? Or are you a passive investor where, yes, you're interested. Yes, you want the opportunity. Yes, you want the tax advantages, but you definitely don't want to be picking up that phone call at 2 a.m. when the toilet's not working, right? And so you have to decide who you are. And then once you decide who you are, that'll dictate the next set of actions. As an active investor, it's all about education. It's all about making, business systems and processes and making sure the team's in place so that you can create a repeatable process to make you as efficient as humanly possible in the back office. On the passive side, the first thing I would do is figure out the 100 or so questions I need to ask a real estate investor to make sure that he or she is who they say they are, right?
Yeah.
And really do due diligence on the human and their operation.
Tell me, anybody can go out and just do a deal. You can go out and do a deal today. Sure. But what actually makes it for you when you're looking at your buy box? What actually makes it a good deal that would sit there and you go, yes, we're moving forward?
So it comes down to what my investors are looking for, right? I think my risk profile is a little bit more aggressive than the investors that we work with, to be honest. I'm willing, because I know that if I'm buying a deal at a 6 cap, but the rents are low, I know I can get it to an 8 or 9 cap, by reducing costs and raising rent and making the operation more efficient, right? But I don't do that with investor money. Really, I'm looking for solid doubles, right? And so the criteria is pretty simple for me. It's a minimum of 12% return on investment. And I need to be able to have a line of sight to be able to get that done in the 3 to 5 year hold timeframe so that I can return capital. And hopefully, the goal is to double the equity in that, short period of time. There's a whole bunch of other things that we look at. We look at revenue per door. We look at, gross rents as they compare to, the rest of the market. I'm looking at, from a macro perspective, I'm looking at jobs, job creation, job growth, employment, poverty levels. Who is the resident, right? Is this affordable housing? Is this, we're smack dab in the middle of an opportunity zone, which we tend to wave off of? Or is it, the working poor and working class folks who, it tends to be where we buy. And that, the fact is those are the people that crank a wrench to fix your car and pour your coffee at the local diner and check you out at Target or Walmart, right? And they probably have, the human being that you're standing in front of probably has all of those jobs, right? To make ends meet. And so, we get very clear on exactly who we're serving. And then, we're looking at population, is it growing? Is it stable? If it's going down, that's probably not a market that we want to play in. We look at crime, we look at schools, we look at, there's 13 different things that we look at on when we're evaluating a deal, and we do it on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis.
Sure.
So, like Willimantic, which is a up and coming town, it's an academic town. It's right near Eastern Connecticut University and University of Connecticut. And so, towns, the properties above a certain street are phenomenal. But Willimantic used to be the heroin capital of the Northeast, and below a certain street, not so good. And so, literally block to block, we're paying attention to what we're acquiring and what the crime statistics are and all that. I mean, we pay quite a bit of attention to that, even, when we go to buy. And then also after, part of our asset management strategy is to also pay attention to that. Sure. So we know if it's time to sell.
It's interesting. It takes an expert in the market to understand those nuances at that granular level.
Yeah. Thank you. It's hard learned, right? So it's a whole bunch of, like you, I'm sure I'm a maniacal networker, right? So I want to talk with, the local fire department. I want to talk with the building inspector. I want to know the local brokers. I want to know the local police chief. And I want to know what's going on. And so, with every property we own, I here in this office, we subscribe to the local newspaper. I want to know everything, right? We know the city plan that's been published, if there is one. Smaller towns don't necessarily do that, but right. We want to know if a convention center is coming, or a mall is struggling, or there's a plot of land that they're going to build industrial buildings on, and that means 250 jobs, and so that those humans need a place to live, and ideally a nice place. So we want to know all that stuff, and so we track that on a monthly basis.
Tell me, right now, lending has changed somewhat. I mean, certainly the rates have changed, but then borrowing, some of the underlying details and the ability to borrow the various structures. How are you borrowing right now in today's environment?
It's a mix of things. So we have a commercial banker relationship. We have local banks. The local banks, quite frankly, so most of them are regionals around here. Mm-hmm. They've tightened up quite a bit. And so a lot of it is, depending on the deal, sometimes we'll use hard money. Sometimes we'll use, work with, commercial or private lenders. And then, the other part of it is we've got a group of investors who, put their money in as equity and look for a preferred return. And we leverage that as well. And then obviously our own money.
Sure. So those deals where it's hard money or private money, you're going in, presumably executing on a plan, stabilizing it, either selling it or going back and getting permanent funding at some point.
Typically, we're holding it. Yeah. So it'll be a 6 to 12 month plan, depending on how large the project is. Yep. We'll go in, we'll do the clean and safe. We'll do the upgrades of the common areas. We'll upgrade all of the units. We'll stabilize it and get it to, ideally 85 to 90% of the market rent. And, I don't need to squeeze every dollar out, right? Because the fact is that if someone, one of the ways that we retain residents is by giving them a good deal. And so they're not going to necessarily find as nice a place, as well run for the price point that they're getting, right? And, we run pretty lean here, so we can afford to do that, from an operational perspective. But the fact is that we're always paying attention to, that operation so that, our residents don't get tempted to jump ship.
Yeah. Tell me about your communication plan. How do you keep investors informed throughout the life cycle of an investment?
Yeah, that's great. So we have a platform. We use Cashflow Portal as our platform. Mm-hmm. So it depends on the deal, right? Because a lot of investors don't want to know what we're doing. They don't care, right? But there are a few that want to learn, right? And so if at the very least they're hearing from us on a monthly basis, and that is, through the portal, they have access to our financials for that property. Typically as we're updating the property, we're uploading pictures. There's a monthly report that goes out that talks about, okay, here's where we were, here's where we are, here's where we're going, over the next month. And so that they can track exactly what we're doing. And then the ones that really want to learn and, learn how to do what we do for a living. I do a Zoom call as well. And so I'll walk through and say, okay, this is what the unit looked like before. This is what we changed. This is why we changed it. Here's how much it cost. Here's how long it took. And, mileage may vary because this is Connecticut and things are more expensive here. If you're in, Florida or Iowa or somewhere else, it's probably a different price point. But the fact is that, our job here is to serve our investors as however they want to be served. So, I'd say 75% of the folks don't care why we use white shaker cabinets and granite. 25% do. And so those are the ones that I do the extra Zoom calls to help them learn how to do this. And, if hopefully one day they turn around and say, I'm not going to invest anymore because I'm going to go do it myself. Awesome. Yeah. Cool. Mission accomplished.
What attracts passive investors to multifamily, to what you do versus another asset class? Or is it more so the benefits they derive from being involved in real estate?
Yeah, a lot of the folks that we work with are professionals, so lawyers, doctors. Mm-hmm. They make, technology executives, and they make a lot of money, right? And so the big thing is, the question I always get is, what's my share of the depreciation of this building, right? And so, they're looking to offset their income with depreciation, against these buildings, and that's fantastic. The other folks that we were working with are typically feeding their retirement accounts, and so they use a self-directed IRA through one of the players in that space. And they use their IRA funds to to grow. And, so it's a different kind of focus, right? But that basically is, who we're working with is typically accredited investors. We use 506B as our means of generating capital flow.
Sure.
Mainly because I have friends and family that want to invest and they're not accredited investors. So, the 5,000 from my niece or the, 10 grand from my mom, we aggregate that and put that in the deal as well. And hopefully, our goal is to get as close to a double as we can.
When a passive investor is looking at opportunities and they're evaluating an operator, what should they be looking for inside of an operator?
Wow, great question. So it's funny, I'm writing an ebook about this literally right now. And so far I'm at 107 questions you need to ask a sponsor.
Wow.
And, so I think about it, so macro to micro, right? So macro, what is the geographic region? What exactly is going on, right? Is population growing? Are jobs growing? How's the crime? How are the schools? All of that, right? Drill that down to, so market is first. And then the sponsor, I want to know your track record. I want to know exactly, and don't tell me about all your successes. Tell me where you screwed up too. Yeah. And because I think you learn more from a person or a business with how they handle adversity than how they handle success. Success is easy, right?
Correct.
But, like for me, the story I typically tell is, back early in my career, I collapsed the top floor of a 10,000 square foot building. And, the eyes will always go wide and, no one was hurt. But, the fact is that I hired a contractor and I vetted the living daylights out of him, but I made a mistake in that I didn't vet his subs, and his subs made a gigantic mistake and undermined the stability of the fourth floor. And, several tons of bricks went into the parking lot in the back and into the building in the front. And thank God no one got hurt. But that was, as the building inspector who was on the site, within an hour of that accident said, "Hey, look, insurance, you got a free building." I'm like, I don't know about that, but we'll see.
Right.
But the fact is that it was a fire burned building, and we had structural engineers come in and basically lay out for us how to replace the flooring systems and all that. And long story short, they removed the wrong joists and clipped the fourth floor of support and collapsed the brick walls. Whoops. So lesson learned, big lesson, and that was 6-7 years ago at this point.
And you're right. There's more lessons learned in the things that don't go the way they should than when it goes right. Yeah. And your ability to go, okay, learn a lesson now. How do we overcome this? Because that's indicative of your ability to overcome anything.
Yes.
Independent of the situation. And then how do we put a process, procedure, policy, something in place to make sure that this didn't happen again? And also, how do we apply that similar thought and methodology to other sections of the business?
Without a doubt. So, when you're looking at the sponsor, okay, what's the process you go through to vet the people that work for you, right? And then if you are subbing some of that out, or if those people sub out, what's your vetting process for that, right? And that can be anything. That can be cleaning staff. It can be landscaping folks. It can be subcontractors, you name it. We know exactly who's on our property at any given time. Yeah. And so there's systems and processes that we go through in terms of looking at a deal, how we evaluate a deal, how we construct a rehab plan, how we execute that plan, who owns all of those steps. It's not just me. We've got a team here that does a really good job with that. As I tell people, if I walk into a situation and I'm the person in charge and the smartest person in the room, we're all in a lot of trouble. So, you hire people that are really good at what they do. Yeah. And so, you look at the sponsor, you look at them, how they evaluate the market. And then I want to know about the deal itself, right? What is the business plan? Walk me through, okay, today, from the moment we buy it to the moment we sell it, what's the plan? And I ask for a whole lot of detail. And then the other thing I want to know is, how do we know we're done, right? What constitutes done? What's the ultimate goal? And then I'm evaluating a deal in terms of, I'm very wary of confirmation bias. I can talk myself into a lot of different things. So I want to know from a sponsor's perspective, whose other eyeballs have been on this, right? That aren't you, right? Do you use an outside underwriter? Do you run these by your accountant? How do you vet these deals and make sure that you're not putting on rosy glasses? I also want to know, the game plan in terms of, how I get my money back, right? Yep. And what that process is. Are you going to refi in year 3 and return capital, and then we're all going to, enjoy the equity going forward and sell it in year 5? Okay, that's fine. That's great. Or are you going to hold on to my money for the year 5 and,
right,
knowing because there's a potential recession coming in that cycle or in that span of time, and you want to be well capitalized so you're not scrambling for cash or doing a cash call with investors.
Like we said, you want to know when you're done. What does that
find done?
Define it? What does that look like to know when we get here, X happens?
I know, exactly.
Yeah. And for some, the market has been so good over the last handful of years and really good over the last, 24 to 36 months that, the goal was, hey, we're going to get to here in 7 years. But when you've defined what done means and the market has shifted and revealed itself as being exceptionally positive, done may be done. You may have moved 7 years to 3 years on occasion.
Without a doubt. We had a deal in New Britain, which is one of the mid-sized cities here in Connecticut. It was a building we bought and rehabbed. It was a rehab gone bad that we picked up. A private lender had taken it back from the person who bought it from. And I happened to know the guy. So he called and said, any chance you want to take this project over? We walked it and bought it that day, basically. Yeah. And, one of the things that I look at, in terms of the business plan is the valuations that we're expecting over a 1 to 5 year period of time. And so, we rehabbed it, we finished the project, we stabilized it, nice people moving in. And someone, a year later came along and offered us, while in year 2, our year 4 price. You know what my answer was? You bet. Here are the keys, right? Take the win. And then we take that 1031 exchange into something else and go buy something else.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, tell me, what are you most excited about this year?
That's a great question. I am excited for the economy to correct because I think that the valuations that exist, particularly here in our market in the Northeast, are artificially high, and it's changed the dynamic of the sale in terms of. It used to be that you buy a property based on the revenue, the NOI that's being created today, right? And everything beyond that is my money, not the seller's money, right? However, what's happened is brokers have started, pushing pro forma and saying, okay, yes, I know this is expensive, but the rents are, 40% below market and you can get all this. So we're going to take half of that and then you're going to get the rest. No, that's not the way this works. And so, I'm looking for that dynamic to kind of rationalize back to I'm paying for the way it's operating today, not 6 months from now after I've done all that work.
Correct. Right? Yeah. If I have to do the work, I get paid for it.
Yes. I'm funny that way. I don't do it for funsies. We do it so that we can actually make some money on it.
Yeah. Let's do this. I want to move on to the final segment, what I call the final 4.
Okay.
What do you think holds most passive investors back from hitting their personal next level, whatever that happens to be?
So it's funny. I think that human beings fear the unknown on a regular basis. And so I think that they think more dollars, more commas, more zeros means more risk. And the fact is that if you do it right, you actually lower the risk, not increase the risk when you're going for larger projects. And so I think one of the things that holds investors back, passive investors in particular, are, wow, that's a big project. I'm not sure I want to put my money in that. Right. But the fact is that if I have a 50-unit building and I lose 5 residents because for whatever reason, right? Couldn't repair the relationship. They don't like the rules we put in place, whatever, right? I've only lost 10%. And, our break even on that 50 units is probably 22 to 25 units. And now go to the 7 unit that we were talking about in Willimantic. If I lose 5 residents there, I'm in trouble.
Yep.
That's a problem. Right. So I think that's part of it. I think the zeros and the commas can be intimidating. But in fact, I also, if I can get them to breathe in and breathe out, I can lay it out for them and help them understand that this is actually a lot less risky. Yes, it's more money, but it's also, you're spreading that risk over a lot more of an asset.
You'd rather have a 50 unit than a single family home.
Yes, exactly.
One vacancy is 100%.
Yeah. And it wipes out, potentially wipes out the cash you made the year previous. Almost entirely. It can.
Just to carry it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Outside of real estate, what are you most passionate about?
So, it's funny. My uncle was asking me the other, not that long ago, like, what are your hobbies? Because he always sees me working. Right. Yeah. And I said, have you met your nieces? I've got one daughter who's now in college, but she was a swimmer. Yeah. And I've got, another daughter who is a softball player, and they both travel quite a bit. We're all over the country. And so my hobbies are driving my daughters to games and school events and all that. My wife and I, we certainly do love to travel. We've got a little place up in Rhode Island that we get to sneak off to every once in a while. And that's amazing. But right now I'm dad, and that's the best hobby I could possibly think of, because it's a whole lot of fun watching your kids grow.
Your favorite book?
Business or otherwise?
Oh, I'll leave it up to you.
All right. So I'll answer it 2 ways then. So my favorite book is Atomic Habits. So that's more of a personal development. Yeah. The fact is that in that the one thing I took away from that, I'm always reading a book, and if I get one gold nugget out of it, it's time well spent. Yeah. And I tend to be a pretty voracious reader. I was, former English major. So I read and consume information, mostly through audiobooks and podcasts, but a lot of audiobooks. Yeah. And, every year I look to read, a book a week, and I've yet to do it, but I get pretty close. Yeah. But Atomic Habits, it's when you wake up in the morning, who do you want to be that day? Yeah. And that is something that I always, use to kind of get me, if I'm feeling like, oh man, I don't want to do this today. I'm tired or whatever. I worked late last night, and, I only got 4 hours of sleep. Who am I today? I'm a husband and a father who has to provide. I've got a team that needs us to execute so that we can make payroll. And we got a whole bunch of investors who are looking for help, our help to help grow their wealth, and, subcontractors and contractors who are swinging hammers and pushing paintbrushes for us. They all count on us. Right. So I got to show up. Yep. So who am I going to be that day? Right. On a personal note, I am a Tom Clancy aficionado. The Hunt for Red October is my favorite book of all time. I loved it. I love the way Tom used to construct a story. There were about 7 or 8 different levels on highly complex stories that, he spends the first 200 pages explaining all of the different things that seem unrelated. And then the last 200 pages are pulling it all together and going, oh, I get it. Now I understand why that guy and this gal are in this story, because they just met, and, the Russians are coming, and oh boy. Yeah. So, it was, that's a tremendous book.
What's your favorite way to make an impact in the community?
So I ran Little League here for a better part of 10 years. And, it's somebody gave me a study. A friend of mine who works at ESPN gave me a study, and it talked about keeping the kids on the path. Right. And, the fact is that boys and girls, but this study was about girls in particular, but it applies to boys as well. Kids who are active tend to make better decisions in terms of interacting with the opposite sex. They tend to have a better grade point average, and they are far less likely to experiment with drugs, alcohol, and other stuff, right? And so part of the way that I kind of give back to the community, or did. I haven't been in charge for a few years now, but was making sure that every kid felt welcome. I don't care if you are the home run hitter or the kid who doesn't even know how to put on a glove. Doesn't matter to me. I want to get you on the path so that you fall in love with the sport and you stick with it and you play through high school, and you wake up as an 18-year-old high school graduate, and then you are off with the rest of your life. You know, it's there was a sign that my grandmother had in her house that said something, I'm going to paraphrase because I'm not going to get it right. I can see it, but I can't read it. It's far better to have impacted the life of one child than 100 adults, right? And I firmly believe in that. So, a lot of what I've done is in terms of helping kids in the neighborhood or the community.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. Ed, this has been a wonderful conversation. You're a wealth of knowledge in your experience. I mean, you have done so much and learned a lot over the years, and obviously make an impact in a number of different ways with folks. For folks, they want to find you, they want to connect with you, they want to follow you. What should they do? Where should they go?
Yeah, so we also have a podcast. It's called The Real Estate Underground, and we release a new episode every Tuesday. So if you're interested in hearing from me, and also we interview experts like Neil and other folks all over the country talking about their businesses, I'd love for you to listen and give us feedback. And if you want us to talk about a specific subject, or if you want us to interview a certain person, shoot us an email at ed@clarkst.com, and we will find that person, or make sure we understand that subject and get it out to you so that we can add value. If you want to learn about Clark Street, best way to do that is through our website, which is clarkstreet.com, clarkst.com. And we're at your service. I look forward to hearing from you.
Ed, thanks so much for your time. This has been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you coming on and sharing so much. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks.
You bet. See you soon. To our listeners, pat yourself on the back. You guys have made it to the end of the show, and most people never finish what they start. If you receive value from today's show, be sure to share it on LinkedIn, your Facebook page, or your social media platform of choice. Subscribe to never miss a valuable episode in the future. And if you found value in today's episode, give us a thumbs up with a positive review. If there's a particular topic you'd like to hear about, well, I want to hear from you. Shoot me a message on LinkedIn. The link to my profile is below in the show notes. You can connect with me there for more valuable content.